Good morning, CP Pre-Calc. And what we're going to do today is finish our packet on ellipses. Now, attached above this video is the key to your homework problems from last night. So please take a look at them. If you have any questions or concern, please come to office hours and we can go over any of the problems. Okay, what we're going to do is we're finishing our packet today. I'm going to go over the rest of the problems in the packet. And then below there's a PDF and you have like 2 to 3 problems in that PDF that you have to complete for your assignment today. And that is it. And then you can enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about writing the equation of ellipse given some of the information. So let's take a look at number 13 in our packet. And the directions say, write the standard form of the equation of the ellipse that meets each set of conditions. Now, remember, there are 2 variations of the standard form. And the key thing is to identify if it is a side-to-side ellipse or an up and down ellipse. So we have to look at our information that we're given to determine if it's an up or down or side-to-side, and that will determine what equation we are drawn towards. So the center is the origin. So that right off the bat that I know that HK in that formula. Hold on, I want to make it a little thicker because it's easier to write. Okay, HK in that formula is equivalent to 0, 0. So H is 0, K is 0. They also gave me A is 8 and B is 6, which is very valuable. But the problem now is I need to know, is A and B, is A under X or A under Y? And that's determined by where my major axis is. So let's take a look at that, guys. If I look at that, so I have my A and B. No, I'm trying to highlight the other way and it's not letting me. So I have A, well, we'll just let it be. A and B. Let's look at our major axis. So our major axis is parallel to the y-axis. Your major axis is going to be, if I look at that, if I look at my major axis, is always, remember that equation, it's just always 2a. That is my major axis. And if it's parallel to the y-axis, the major axis will be the direction of my ellipse. So if it's parallel to the y-axis, it is going to be an up and down ellipse. Where the major axis, if it's going horizontally, it's a side to side. If it's going vertically, it's an up and down. So we know it's an up and down ellipse. Right away, then I know if it is an up and down ellipse, that means A is always larger than B, is under Y. So that means I have B squared here, and then I have Y minus K squared, and A squared has to be under Y because it is an up and down parabola. Ellipse. It's an up and down ellipse. So now we just plug in our values. We know B is 6, and we know A is 8, and we know H and K are 0. So now my answer should be X minus 0 squared, which is X squared, over B squared, which would be 36, plus Y minus K, which is just Y squared, over A squared, which is 64, and that would be equivalent to 1. This would be my standard form equation of the ellipse. All right. So now the key is to identify where the major axis is. That's going to tell us whether it's an up and down or a side to side. So let's flip the page to 14. Now this one, they're giving us a center. They're saying our center is -3, -1. So therefore we now know H and K. That means H K equals -3, -1. So that's valuable information. But what we need to now know is where is our major axis? Is it horizontal or vertical to determine which equation that we're drawn towards and where A is under? Is A under X or is A under Y? So it says the length of the horizontal, let's take a look at that, horizontal semi-major axis is 7 units. Horizontal semi-major. Horizontal means right there, that horizontal word means we have a side to side because it's saying that my semi-major axis, we have a side to side ellipse. Now, when it says semi-major, that means half my major axis. Semi represents half. So let's think of it. If we have a major, we said our major axis equals 2a. That means a semi-major, if I take half that major axis, they're saying that semi-major would be half of 2a. So that means semi-major would just be A, because A is half of 2A. So they're telling me that my semi-major axis is 7, therefore I know A is equivalent to 7. Now, the major axis represents the A. The minor, now let's take a look at that. We have a semi-minor. A semi-minor axis is 5 units. The minor axis corresponds with your B. So if I look at this, I know my semi-minor would be 2B. Therefore, if my semi-minor is 2B, I don't know if that's written clear enough for you. Let me move it over a little. My semi-minor would be B, because my minor would just be 2B. So when you see semi, that's half of it, because we know our minor axis is 2B. So half the minor axis would just be B. So now I know B is 5. Now we know it's a side to side. If it's a side to side, now we already said that. If it is that side to side, I'm going to have X minus a -3, so plus 3 squared. Side to side, A goes under X. The larger value is under X. So A squared would be 7 squared, which is 49. Plus Y minus a -1, which is a plus 1 squared, over B squared. B squared would be 25. And that would be equivalent to 1. That would be my standard form equation of my ellipse. All right. Okay, so whenever you see semi-major, semi-major means A. When you see semi-minor, semi-minor means B. That's the one thing I want us to make sure that we remember. Semi-major is A. Semi-minor is B. Okay, so let's take a look at 15 now. 15, they're giving me my A value. A is 7, which is helpful. And they're giving me the foci. The foci are -2, 0, and 2, 0. So what I don't have right now that I need is a couple things. I need to know if it's up or down or side to side. I need to know what my B value is. And I also need to know my center. So let's just graph this first. Let's take a look at graphing this. If I graph it, I'm just going to graph the two foci. My two foci would be -2, 0, actually, and 2, 0. So let me do that. Let's pick a different color now that I know I have multiple colors I can work with. Here are my two foci. So I have focus 1, focus 2, two foci. Now, what I want us to remember is your foci are on the major axis. So that means if my foci are on the major axis, I am going to have a horizontal major axis. Your foci are always on the major axis. That's something we have to remember. And the other thing I want us to make note is the midpoint of the foci. The midpoint of F1 and F2 is the center. So the center will always be the midpoint of your two foci and the midpoint of your vertices. So opposite vertices. So make sure you're aware of that. So if you take a look at this, so if that's my midpoint, I know if that is that midpoint right there, what I would say is if I'm looking at the midpoint, I go here, let's take a look at that midpoint. Take a look right there between -2, 0 and 0. And 2, 0. We have a midpoint of 0, 0. That would again be my center. So now I know my center is 0, 0. So I know H is 0 and K is 0. And I know A. Okay, and I also know I have a side to side. And we know it's side to side because the foci lie on the major axis. And the major axis determines if it's a side to side or an up and down. So if it's side to side, I know A goes under X. So what do I need to find now? I need to figure out how to find B. Now let's recall, guys, that C squared is equivalent to A squared minus B squared. I know A squared is 49 because that's 7 squared. Do I know C squared? Now remember, C is our magic distance. It's the distance between the center and the foci. So if I look at this is my magic distance right there. That is C. The distance between the center and the foci is your magic distance. So if I take a look at this, my magic distance is 2. Therefore, I know C is 2. So if I put that in, therefore C squared would be, this would be 2 squared. Here, let me write this as 7 squared so everyone knows what I'm coming from. So I got 2 squared and 7 squared, and I can use those values now to find B squared. So I have 4 equals 49 minus B squared. Now remember, we don't need to find B. We need to find B squared because B squared is what is in our equation. So if I add B squared and then I subtract 4, I get B squared is equivalent to 45. That is what I need in my equation. I need B squared. I don't have to worry about what B is. I need to know B squared. Now I know it's a side to side. I go back and I say, I can put my equation in. I have X minus 0 squared. It's side to side, so A squared goes under X. A is 7. 7 squared is 49. Plus Y minus 0, because K is 0. That would just be Y squared on top over B squared. Well, B squared we said is 45, and that would be equivalent to 1. So right here, this would be my standard form of that ellipse. All right. Okay, guys, let's look at 16. Now, vertices. Now, vertices, the same thing as the foci. Vertices and the foci are the midpoint of the vertices and the midpoint of the foci are going to be the center of the ellipse. So again, I like to draw things right off the bat because I feel like it just makes it visual for us. So if they're saying I'm going to draw this, it says I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have -2. So let's get some points. All right, guys. So I'm going to say my vertices. We'll do my vertices in this color here. We'll make it thicker. And I got 5 right there. And I got 5. -5 and 5. Those are 2 vertices. Then I got my foci, right? So my foci are going to be, again, at -2 and 2. Now, you can see the foci are on the major axis. So I already know right now that this is my major axis right here because this would have to be the vertices of the major axis because the foci are on the major axis. So again, if we look at this, we already know our center. What is our center, guys? Our center is, again, 0, 0, because that is the midpoint of both of those sides. So I know that center is 0, 0. And I also now know that since the foci go horizontally, this is a side-to-side ellipse. So I got my center. I know HK. H comma K is 0, 0. Now I need to figure out A and B. Now remember, A is this, wait, hold on. This whole thing right here, we'll do this. My major axis, this whole major axis is equivalent to 2A. That is always the length of your major axis is 2A. So if I look at that, the distance between my 2 vertices on that major axis would be 10. So I know 2A would equal 10. That's my major axis. A would be your semi-major axis, which would be half of it. So A would be equivalent to 5. So we have 5. Now, again, we just talked, how can we find that C value? Well, your C value is going to be the distance between our foci and the center. So in both cases, it is 2. So we again know that C is 2. So once we know A and C, we can use those values to help us find B squared, because I know C squared is equivalent to A squared minus B squared. So again, I have 2 squared, which is 4, equals A squared, which is 25, minus B squared. I'm going to add B squared and then subtract 4 to get B squared is equivalent to 21. Now, I do not have to find B because B squared is what is in my equation of the ellipse. So if I go back, I say, okay, I know B squared now. I know it's a side to side. Now, the side to side tells me that A goes under X. So I have X minus H. H is 0, so I just have X squared over A has to be under X. So I have A to be 25 plus Y squared over B squared. B is going to be 21. This is going to be equivalent to 1. This would be my standard form of that ellipse. All right. Okay, guys, let's do our next one. We have 17, the final problem we're going to go over today. The semi-major. Remember, semi means half. So when you see semi-major, that means that is A. This is telling me that my A value, because your major axis is 2A, my semi-major would be half that. So A is equivalent to 4. They're telling me my semi-major axis has a length of 4. That's A. And they're giving me my 2 foci. Now remember, your foci are on your major axis, so that's going to help us out. Now again, I like to draw it so it becomes visual to me. So I need, it's 2, 3, and negative, right? It's 2, 3, and 2, negative 3. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I have 2, 3, and 2, negative 3. Now if I want to graph these foci, I got 2, 3, and 2, negative 3. I go 2 up, 1, 2, 3, and I go 2 down, 3. These foci are going vertically. So this is foci 1 and foci 2. That means if they're going vertically, I have an up and down ellipse because my foci are going vertically. Your foci are always on your major axis. Now remember, the midpoint of your foci will be your center. So if I look here, where is that center? Your center right there is at, let's pick a different color. Your center is at 2, 0. That is my center right there at 2, 0. Okay, so let's see. I have an up and down. I have a center 2, 0. I have my A value. Now we have our A value. We need to find B. And to find B, we have to find C first. Remember, the distance. If I look here, the distance between my foci and my center is my C value. So here I go. My C value will be 3. Because the foci are 3 units away from the center. So that means my C value is equivalent to 3. So now I can find B. I can say C squared equals A squared minus B squared. And if I do that, I get 9 equals 16 minus B squared. I'm going to add B squared to the other side. I'm going to subtract 9. And I'm going to get B squared is equivalent to 7. All right. So my B squared is equivalent to 7. So what do I do, guys? What do I do? What I do now is I have an up and down. I know I write X minus the H, which is the X value of my center, minus 2 squared. It's up and down. That means A would go under Y, so that means B squared goes under X. Plus Y squared minus K, Y minus K, which would just be Y minus 0, so that's Y squared over A squared, which is 4. And that would be equivalent to 1. This would be my standard form of number 17. All right, guys, you have 3 problems below. Okay, I want you to try them and upload your answers to those 3 problems on this assignment. That's the last thing you have to do for math this week. I hope you have a fun Memorial Day weekend. Rest, get some time outside. And if you have any questions today for this assignment or yesterday's assignment, please visit me at office hours. All right, guys, have a great day.